sitting not just comfortably, but, if you will, in a royal way, as if I'm about to meet an important person. And noting what you do, what physical adjustment you might make when you think of sitting in a royal way, seating the body in a very royal way. You may have made an alignment change in the body, maybe sitting up straighter, better posture. There is such a connection between aligning and that royalty. So I sit here now in a royal way, very engaged, very alert, very aware, very present. I'm about to meet a very royal, very important person. But it's not someone out there. I'm about to meet myself. As I go through the day, my sense of self can become a little misaligned. I start to think of myself at best in a very ordinary way. And at worst, I forget myself completely. I get caught up in the actions. I get caught up in looking at others. I get caught up in scenes of the past, concerns about the past or the future. I get entangled in roles and responsibilities. I completely lose all sense of the self. I have no attention on the state of the self, my alignment inside. And if I do, it's quite ordinary. Sometimes compared to someone else, and yes, sometimes defined by what's going on outside, by those roles and responsibilities. But we are so much more than meets the physical eye. Each of us, every single human soul, is extremely special, very valuable. Within each of us is the most sought after resources in the world. We're very precious. And of course, each of us is life itself, which we cannot put any value on whatsoever. It's invaluable. Do I have this kind of sacred attitude towards myself? I go inside now to seat myself on that throne of sacred feelings, very pure attitude, aligning with the truth. And that's going to require going deep inside. The layers and habits of ordinary thinking and forgetting are many. So I'll be patient as I travel inwards and all those other thoughts trying to pull and vie for my attention. Those timelines, those deadlines, those activities, those memories, all pulling me. But I remain focused on the destination, that seat of royalty, that experience of the true self. And as I travel deeper and deeper inside towards my destination, a lot starts to naturally fade into the distance, fall away, I lose interest. All those day-to-day thoughts, worldly thoughts, even some of the heaviness, the worries, concerns, and fears start to just fall away, fade away. And it becomes more simple, definitely more light, more calm as I get closer and closer to my destination. It's a single point, a single experience, just of the self, the essence of myself. It's a timeless experience. It's not conditional on anything outside, not any role or responsibility, not even any relationship, and not even the body, the physical appearance. Independent of all of that is a true, timeless experience of me. And anything that is true, aligned with the truth, will feel real, like coming home to the self. I imagine this sense of self to be like discovering a precious jewel, a diamond within, the jewel of the self. Just as they place jewels in the royal crown, I am that jewel. Very precious. And like a diamond, it is eternal. Again, all those resources that we are seeking outside are contained within the jewel of the self. Peace, pure love, true power, benevolence, harmony, joy, all of these beautiful qualities, forgiveness, acceptance, kindness, they don't come from out there. They originate from the heart of the human soul, from within me. This is the only place they can be found. They are all within me, different facets of the jewel, the diamond that is me. And as I think about those qualities one by one, I take a moment to feel them, that they do exist within me. Going deeply into that feeling of peace, that cool, simple, free feeling of peace. And the warmth of love, the comfort, the healing, the acceptance of love, feeling each of these qualities radiating from within me. I am aligning, experiencing the full array of my own beauty as I am deeply colored by these qualities within the self. I am aware, if I can hold this alignment as I come into action, interaction, sound, and time, how different the day would be. Even the most ordinary activities, driving the car, washing the dishes, would become sacred. Driving with respect, washing the dishes with care and patience. Everything would be touched by realness, by royalty. My entire day would be elevated to the extraordinary. It takes 1 second to align, to touch the realness of the self, those qualities. But that 1 second can transform the rest of my day. Let me experiment as I continue through the day, taking a moment to go in, realign, become real, and then come into expression, the royalness of the self, the grace, the dignity. Om Shanti. Thank you for joining today. Wishing you a very real and royal day. Until next time.
And so welcome to Thursday Night Insight at Global Harmony House. Our MC, our host tonight will be Sister Louise, and she's going to introduce a north of the border presenter that will be quite lovely and entertaining. And you've already heard a little of her meditations. Louise, will you take us away?
I am sitting here with great joy, being able to introduce Sister Judi to all of you, but you've already met her in the meditation, which kind of surprised me this evening. So I'm happy to reintroduce Sister Judi. I met Sister Judi a number of years ago before COVID at Peace Village. And I don't remember what the occasion was, but all I remember is the energy and the vitality and the life force, the elan vital of this beautiful, beautiful soul. So it's with great pleasure that, and I know she's been here before COVID, which seems like decades ago, but this is my first time interviewing or being here as an MC for Judi Rich. And I'm delighted that you came all the way from Calgary to see us this evening. As everyone who's here knows, the theme for July has been nurturing true independence. And Judi is here to talk about a free heart, which implies that our hearts may not be free, that we seem to look for love in all the wrong places, as the popular song says. We seem to put conditions on our love. If you love me, you'll take out the garbage. If you love me, you wouldn't behave a certain way. So as the blurb said for tonight's program, a free heart, every soul longs for a heart to be happy, to be light, and to be peaceful. But sometimes it can come into what we call inner bondages of thoughts and attitudes that make the heart heavy, make it sensitive, make it feel empty. So how can we fill our hearts with the kind of true contentment that we all yearn for? And I know that Sister Judi is going to address this evening, and that we're all going to come away an hour from now with some new ideas of how we can perhaps make ourselves happy, because let's not forget that the theme is true independence for this evening. I'll tell you a little bit about Sister Judi. In addition to currently serving as the coordinator for the Brahma Kumaris at Calgary, she works as a graphic designer and a fitness instructor. I was a little amazed at that the first time I saw a picture of you in your yoga outfit and your beautiful hair flying in the wind. I was just so delighted. My heart burst with joy how, in my way of interpreting that, you have managed to take your body, you know, around here we talk about soul consciousness and we talk about body consciousness as being a bad thing. But when we can get the body to work for us, to be our, I don't want to say slave, but to serve us, when we can discipline it, when we can appreciate it and have gratitude for it, and demonstrate that to the world and on YouTube. I just think that it just makes me smile. So I'm very, very curious, because you have said that although it may seem that the intensity and activity of fitness and the stillness and silence of contemplation are incompatible, you found that the opposite is true, that they actually enhance each other and create a sense of well-being when integrated. So I am very, very excited to hear what you have to say about that this evening. And once again, I'd like to welcome you all the way here to Great Neck, Long Island, New York, and Harmony House. Sister Judi, thank you.
Om Shanti. Good evening. Thank you, Louise, for such a beautiful introduction. I was thinking, you know, you can just keep talking. I'll just listen.
I can. Be careful what you wish for.
It was very lovely, really lovely. And as well, our behind the scene angel, Eric, who was showing, I love that flying free video. I think we all need to dance at the end. You can bring it back and we'll just all fly around. But yes, this topic for the month, nurturing true independence, is amazing. And within that, this idea of a free heart. And, you know, when we use this word heart, I think everyone gets a little excited. We love this word heart. We love the idea of living from the heart, expressing from the heart, having a happy or free heart. We want to have our work be aligned with what we love, etc. So the heart plays a very important aspect in quality of life. And this idea of having a happy or a free heart, I think, is really at the essence of spirituality, the promise of a robust spiritual practice. Often when introducing the study of Raj Yoga, what the Brahma Kumaris offer to the public, just sharing, that's our business. That's our focus, is peace and happiness, having a peaceful heart and a happy heart. So it's very central to the spiritual practice. And when I discovered, there was a couple of things that I discovered when I started to delve into a spiritual study. I love talking about the heart. I loved thinking about the heart, but I realized I don't think I know much about the heart, actually. We have ideas, but did I really understand what this aspect of the heart was about? And coming into a spiritual study, there's a couple of things I discovered, and they're both very, very hopeful things at a time when we need a lot of hope, very hopeful things. And the first thing I discovered is how the heart of a human soul is built, what it's designed to do. And it's actually designed to be kind. Now, we can experience a whole bunch of other things happening to our feelings and emotions, but when it's healthy, what it's designed to do is actually be kind, to be benevolent. We often say we are children of God, and what that means is that we actually operate the same way. We are designed to operate from the heart in a very benevolent or kind way. I found that very hopeful. Often we think, I think it's a bad seed. And, our heart becomes so full of other feelings, hurt, sensitivity, that we question, what exactly is this human heart? Are we often battling against these very negative tendencies in the heart? No, actually, in its natural, healthy state, the heart of the human soul is extremely kind. So when we heal back to that state, we will rediscover our innate benevolence. The other thing about the heart, so that means there's a memory to the heart. And the other aspect is this idea of the heart being a container for the most noble ideals of the soul. It has this understanding, again, a memory of our highest potential. And when we start to go against that memory, we say dishonor the heart. That's when we start to actually not feel so great. We become a little disheartened. So there's an aspect almost of the conscience connected to the heart. So these two ideas that the heart is built to be kind, it has a memory of our potential. And when we dishonor that memory, that's actually when we start to not feel that great. And it's interesting because we'll often talk about things outside of us making us feel hurt or unhappy or resentful or whatever other feelings and emotions come in. We often will look outside for the reason. And that basically means that we become what we call almost a victim of what's going on outside. So now we have a double problem. I've, in a sense, misdiagnosed the source of why I feel bad. I don't realize it's because I've really gone against the honor of the heart, those memories. And then the second mistake I'm making is I'm blaming something outside. I'm putting myself at the mercy of something outside. Until that person or situation changes, I can't feel better. So I have a couple of problems now. So what spirituality is trying to do, or what I felt very pulled to do, and maybe that's why I stumbled onto a Raj Yoga Center, is I really wanted to understand the feelings in the heart. Many come to the centers and share. They don't want to feel so influenced, so affected, this idea of self-mastery, not a head thing, but at the level of heart. They want to be kind. They don't want to react. They don't want to have critical thoughts for others, or more importantly, themselves. So they want to get that heart back online, but it's become such a deep habit to miss those two aspects, to not realize I'm actually going against the heart, and also to not be pulled into being at the mercy of what's going on outside in terms of what's controlling the heart. And that to me is the real lack of freedom, is that we come into that victimization, emotionality of things outside are controlling how I feel. Now, in a fitness setting, this doesn't make any sense, because we're dealing with the physical heart in a fitness setting. And if my physical heart is at the mercy, first off, it might be kind of awesome, because it means that other people could work out for me, and that might be great. But this idea that the condition of my heart is dependent on what other people are doing fitness-wise. So when Joe beside me works out harder, my heartbeat goes up. That makes no sense. Right? So this idea that it's this physical heart is in this body in which I'm living, and it's really up to me. There's a potential to it. There's a healthy way, an ideal way for it to operate. And when it does operate in that ideal way, there's no pain in the heart. It's when it's not that there starts to be that pain. So there's an ideal way for it to operate. And also it's actually in my hands as to how that cardiovascular health is, how the heart is operating. It's completely in my heart's hands. That's the way it works in a fitness setting, or in a physical way. It really is the same spiritually. If I'm freeing the heart, I'm sort of reclaiming these two aspects. That's the first thing I need to do on the road to freeing the heart, is I need to reclaim that understanding that the heart, the spiritual heart, has an ideal way of operating. And again, it's aligned with that highest potential, with those most noble ideas, that memory in the heart. So that's the ideal way for the heart to operate, regardless of what's going on outside. Sometimes we might say, well, this happened, or they said that, and it's understandable. I keep thinking of a situation that happened recently, and I hope it doesn't disturb anyone because it's quite extreme. We'll have some therapy afterwards if it does. But in my workplace, the fitness studio, there's what we call the mothership. And then there are off-sites, corporate sites, which we are contracted to manage and teach at. And there was one of these corporate sites that had just reopened. And so a new manager was hired, a lovely, lovely soul, a young soul, about 30 years old. And really, I mean, when you think about really positive, pure-hearted people, they were one of those, like just remarkable. The type who would stop on the street to talk to homeless people, get to know their story. Really, as we say, she had a free heart, I could say. And a few months ago, she sent an email. They were reopening. She asked me if I could come and teach there, again, as part of the organization. And so we had email exchanges. I hadn't even met her, and I could already feel really the quality of her heart. Very generous, very loving. And finally, I went to teach. We actually met. In a few seconds, instant connection, talking spirituality, very beautiful. And, you get these emails from her just out of the blue, just thanking you for being wonderful or being alive. We never get emails like that from managers. If they write us, it's to either correct us or to inform us of a change in policy. That's the only time. We never get emails of you're wonderful and amazing and I love you. So this was the type of soul she was. So a week came where I saw her a few times in the week, got a lovely email. And then at the end of the week, on the Sunday, I received the note that the following week, classes were suspended just for that week because that soul had passed away. And it was a very odd email because I'm like, how did that, what's going like that? Something's not. Anyways, they had passed away under very, shall we say, extreme situations. I won't go into detail. They were in a certain place at a certain time when someone with a weapon was running around. And so that's what happened. And I remember a few weeks later, we were having an event on their behalf, a community event, and her mother and grandmother were there. Now, I don't know about you, but a mother to lose their daughter to very extreme just happenstance circumstances, and the grandmother, I was surprised they were even there. But not only were they there, but they were smiling and supporting and light. And I was like, what's going on inside those souls? They just, and I thought, they have a free heart. They have a free heart. Because of course, the most powerful way to honor the legacy to honor someone's life is really to uphold their legacy and their vision, to keep that going forward. And they were healthy enough to be able to do that. They were not completely absorbed in grief and sorrow, which of course is the last thing that soul would want anyways. I was just so touched by this. I thought, wow, it must run in the family. It's amazingly free and healthy hearts, very generous, very giving. And so this idea of a free heart, that even whatever the circumstances, one might say in that circumstance is completely understandable. If they can't forgive, if they can't be happy, if they can't be light, this extreme thing just happened. But a really free heart will always be able to operate in alignment with that highest potential, those very noble ideals, even in extreme situations. I know that sounds intense, but that's the sign of a really free heart. So really taking time, first off, to listen to the heart is really important.
Yeah.
To get a sense. Sorry, Louise, did you want to
Yeah,
share?
I just want to interrupt for a second. I'm wondering two things. I'm wondering if the family, the mother and the family actually were buoyed up by what you were doing for them. And it's a synchronization of the feeling. And I also want to remind the audience at this time, I forgot to mention that you are more than welcome to and make any comments, or if you have any questions for Sister Judi, please put them in the chat and we'll be happy to address them at the end of the session before we conclude. So do you think that's probably true? That
Yeah,
symbiotic?
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right, Louise, that, because it was a very unusual circumstance, it came out in the news. And you saw from immediately, different souls will respond differently to that. And the way they chose to respond sort of set this upward spiral in motion. They put something out there, and you're right. It opened the door for someone else. We call them blessings for someone else to add something positive, and that helped them to stay positive. And you kind of get in this upward spiral by that first step. Because, I saw the family responding on the news. And again, I was like, wow, this is really powerful. Like just the grace of the way that family was responding. And then you saw the community just, I would go to this workplace once a week, and there was a beautiful little space. This is a corporate tower. This is very unusual for a corporate tower to have this huge space dedicated with flowers and stuff. It was odd. So, but it's because that family took the first step from their free heart, it really invites others to respond. So that's an important aspect in your question, that a free heart kind of makes it easier for others to operate from a free heart. And it creates this beautiful culture of everyone operating from their highest potential. So a little experiment right now. It's a really simple one. Everyone can do it. Do not panic. We're not going to do push-ups or burpees or anything like that. I'm going to ask you to take 2 fingers And very lightly, we don't want anyone passing out, very lightly place it right here. And this is a place you can place to feel the physical heartbeat. Hopefully you were successful. Otherwise, let us know. We'll get 911 over there. Hopefully you were successful. Now, I love this experiment because and I could see it in Louise, who I can see, people go into almost a meditative state because the physical heart, although it's physical, it's subtle. You're not usually aware of it during the day. So you have to become very focused, just focus just on trying to feel that. People become very still, quiet, introverted. These are all the qualities of meditating, quite frankly. So it almost looks like people are meditating. They're trying to find that. We have to become very quiet and still to even check the state of the physical heart. And that's at least physical, right? So when we're talking about the spiritual heart and becoming reacquainted with those noble ideals, with those core values, with that highest potential, which is the foundation of spirituality, I'm going to probably have to do the same, become quiet, concentrate, not think about anything else, not think about other situations. Don't let them color my experience. I want a very pure experience of listening to my spiritual heart, really to the core of the self. And the heart, again, is the container for one's most elevated state. It has a perfect memory of that. In the chambers of the spiritual heart, there is that perfect memory. I want to become very quiet. I don't want, well, I made that mistake over there and I did that to Bob last week. None of that noise. If I have a lot of noise trying to listen to the physical heart, it doesn't go well. So it's a very pure experience, touching that ancient memory of really the capacity of the self, the power of my own heart. That's a beautiful and very important experience to have. You can call it meditation if you want. It's really just remembering. Important to have to get a sense of what my free or healthy heart feels like. There is that memory in the heart. Whatever it's been through, whatever misunderstandings I might have adopted, there is still deep down that memory. So I want to become quiet. And one way I sort of find easy to touch this, other than going inside and quietly listening in meditation. Have you ever had a situation? I had this happen the other day. I can't remember I know what it was. I was looking at a documentary, a very powerful documentary about something that's happening in a third world country, but it was all about integrity and empowerment. So have you ever witnessed someone doing something that might be very generous or very loving or integrity or whatever values are very important, and you find yourself almost moved to tears? We say it really touches your heart. That will also give you a very good indication of what your free heart is like, what your heart is like when it's free, what the qualities, that memory is in the heart. So I very often find if I'm listening to something where someone overcomes all odds and just doesn't compromise themselves, I find a little tear and I go, what is that about? I'm like, oh, okay. It's touching that memory in the heart. It's really reminding me of what it means to honor my own heart. When I was in high school, one of my favorite novels was To Kill a Mockingbird. And I actually did my last year of high school in the United States. So we had to do all the classics. And the integrity of that main character touched me so deeply. And then I came into spirituality and realized that truthfulness, that integrity, that's really what's sitting in this heart. That's I know my heart is healthy when I am expressing myself that way in the world. And again, that goes for the physical heart as well. I can get my heart in great shape, but it's not until I come into expression that I can really measure how healthy it is. When we were in a retreat in Toronto, which is on the other side of the country here, at one point, and we didn't know this was going to happen, we were leading the gathering there in a dance, and it had jumping and all sorts of and I was in my element. I was enjoying this so much, but my poor sister who doesn't do any of that, she was kind of dying and gasping
Really?
on the side. Don't let her know I told you that. So we want a healthy heart, but we also want it to be there for us, more importantly, when we come into expression physically. And that's good spiritually as well. We can have great seated experiences, but I really won't know that my heart is free until, again, I'm in those challenging or interesting situations. Am I still able to honor those noble ideals in my heart? And then the idea of the inner bondages, to really understand what that's about. People hold memories, as they say, deep in their heart from the past. And they're sitting in there, and they often have to do with, this person did this to me and that happened. And it's not in any way to devalue these extreme situations that do affect us very deeply. Spirituality gently guides us to understand more deeply and more effectively how those situations may have arisen. And also, what was it within me? What can I bring to healing through those situations? I may not get anything from anyone else involved, but what on my side can I bring? And I've always found this is the very powerful part of spirituality, that it's always asking, what is your response to even extreme situations? I remember at one point in the spiritual study, a soul from the past came up to me and they just said, I'm so sorry about what happened. And I'm looking at them like, it's not that I was repressing anything. I sort of had an idea of what they were talking about, but there was not a trace of negative feelings towards that soul. There was deep love and understanding, because that's the beauty of spirituality. We say it broadens the heart, that I could more deeply understand their story and what was really pressing on them, that they could not operate. They did not have a free heart. That's really what we're suffering from. They did not have a free heart, so they could not operate according to their most noble ideals. And what that did is it sat inside of them in a very heavy way. This is the inner bondage, actually. It's not what people do to us. It's actually what we do to people that's sitting inside of us in such a heavy way. And so in spirituality, we say understanding is king. That this understanding is like a healing balm to understand the self, to the point where we're not even talking about forgiveness. The soul said, can you forgive me? I'm like, there's nothing to forgive. Like in my heart, I felt there was nothing to forgive. I totally, not only did I understand the pressures they were under, but I was kind of amazed at what they were able to do, given the inner pressures they were under. And this is how we free our own heart, but also other people's hearts, is through the power of understanding. I'm able to reconnect. I'm able to understand why I operated that way in that moment, that I wasn't free. Start to get busy on a path that does free me, so that in the future, I can respond in a different way. I can respond in a way that honors the heart. That's true freedom, not doing whatever I want, but being able to operate in an honorable way. And the path that we embrace in Raj Yoga to free the heart does involve a couple of key elements. We already discussed one, this idea of recognition of the self in a qualitative way. So really being aware of your highest potential as a spiritual being. So not defined by your physical story, but being able to transcend that and become very aware of your capacity. We are only scratching the surface in terms of our awesomeness, quite frankly. We have glimpses of it, random acts of kindness, glimpses, but to be constantly in that state, to be very aware, to celebrate the self. This is a very beautiful aspect of spirituality. When we say, I am a soul, becoming very aware of these amazing capacities of the self. It touches the heart a lot because you're awakening that memory. The other piece, of course, is the eternal surgeon, the eternal healer, the one we call the Supreme Soul or God, our number one cheerleader, the one who says, I believe in you, I believe in you. This is yoga, this silent chant. We had so many mantras, to God, prayers, etc., which sustained us, of course. But, I remember coming into this study and the question, do you believe in God? Raj Yoga turns it on its head and says, have you experienced God's belief in you?
Yeah.
And that was radical. That was wonderful. And this is called yoga, where I get to experience God's vision on me. This is extremely healing, freeing to the heart. It's really nurturing that full capacity and melting away any scars or injuries or burdens. That it's a very forgiving experience, if you will. So I can't imagine freeing the heart without both of those aspects. I need to accept my highest potential. And I also need to be in the presence of a soul who melts away anything that might dishearten me, melts away anything that might blind me to that highest potential, that might bring doubts back. So between the two, being able to really maintain a very elevated experience in the heart, so important to really keep, and we have to constantly exercise. It's very interesting, when you're physically active and you take as I did, just a few days break, and I come back and we always say, oh, one of the first things to go is your cardio. Like this is a constant, it's not, I'm free. And it's going to require constant attention to keep the heart free, constant attention to keep the heart free, because for so long, it had not been free in this way. It was constantly sensitive, constantly affected to things, and not really understanding what was going on and delving into the grief. I think we became addicted to this, quite frankly. And addictions are a very funny thing, very odd thing, in that they often are damaging, right? Depending on the nature of addiction. I mean, we could be addicted to yoga with God, that's beautiful, but sometimes we're addicted to things that are very damaging, but they've become comfortable. So we've now become comfortable with something that's actually not beneficial. And that's very tricky to deal with. And that keeps the heart in bondage. So we love to, I remember there was one soul, I knew all this life, and whenever I met them, they would talk about what had happened to them in the past, what their mother had done, what intergenerational trauma. They were always talking about the past and delving into it. And it was very interesting. They said, I don't feel anything. I'm like, oh, you're feeling a lot. You're just not feeling what you'd like to feel. You're going very deeply into those feelings of the past every time. And I remember it was such a gentle journey for them to slowly shift from not indulging in those feelings because they were keeping them in bondage. And so the shift wasn't to stop it, to try and cut them off. That never works with addiction, but to replace So start to again work with, let's explore these feelings, these ancient memories of your highest self. And one of the terms they use, for those of you who know any Yiddish, you will know this term. We ask them, what's the deepest, thing that's so valuable to be a mensch? I don't know if you've heard this term, to be a mensch, which is a very beautiful character, very beautiful person. They say, I want to be a mensch. Okay, and I listen to them and say compassion, caring. They're elderly, so home care was always coming in. I noticed all the workers that came in really loved to be with them. And I realized they were completely blind. They were so absorbed, addicted to going into these very painful, they were completely missing the wonder of themselves, which others could see. And so it was slowly shifting them to experience, because remember, every heart, every human soul, the heart is kind, the capacity is there. So shifting them to be able to experience that, and it really it's been taking a while. But now it's like, if they start to notice they're going to, oh no, I'm not going to do that. They stop themselves. There's no violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed lately, I'll get random phone calls for them. Just come and say, how are you doing? Are you okay? How is so-and-so doing? Caring about other people. They're not even talking about themselves anymore. In the past, you call it was just, so you've noticed their heart was becoming more free. And who they really are, this mensch, this caring, compassionate being, they were starting to express that. Their heart was becoming more and more free. So I'm looking at the clock. I don't know how we are with time.
Well, we're fine, but I would like to invite people to enter anything they want in the chat for Judi. And if I may, you've got me thinking about the reaction to COVID the first year. And there may be some people here in the audience who really are not so sure about their natural, innate capacity of the heart. And I would like everyone to kind of close your eyes and remember what happened with the artists in the world who came forward to lift us all out of the depression or the fear by banding together and using electronics, using technology, using Zoom and YouTube to lift us out of the situation. And that energy was felt around the world, proving, and what was, it's like sometimes the world invites us to get in touch with what we didn't know we had, maybe. Or 9/11, here we are in New York, and we have a brother here, Ram, who was on the 67th floor, has told our audience this story, if you've all been here. And he wasn't even frightened. He knew that his mission was to escort people out, and he did. And that feeling, and people were transported by his act of kindness. So even if we forget who we really are, the world can remind us to go there, right?
Yeah, it's really beautiful, Louise, what you shared. And the irony is that when the world seemed to be quite unhealthy, it may have been an opportunity to discover a different form of health. I've always felt that way about these last few years, is it's really inspiring us to look at a different way of operating, including that healthy heart.
Yeah. And the link that the comparison of the physical to the spiritual heart, and the needs are the same. We have to take care of it. We have to nurture it. I just love what you did for us tonight. So any comments or questions from anyone for Sister Judi this evening? Can I talk about, without it sounding like a commercial, your wonderful YouTube Amrit Vela half hour? Because you have highlighted my favorite line, which is, can we allow ourselves to experience, I'm paraphrasing badly probably, God's love for us. And I find that as a student of the Brahma Kumaris, that's an area that's taken a lot of work for me to open my heart, because in my heart, there's what Judi Rogers calls a little dark room that wants to pull me into the darkness. Can you talk about that a little bit for us? What is that?
Yeah,
What
I
do we
think
do with that?
yeah, and it's a very delicate thing to speak to when there's a difference between emotion and feeling. And because spirituality looks at, and I don't want to get into semantics, but just to try and to show the difference, this idea of the feelings, what we call the feelings of the soul, very elevated, and then the emotions, which are more from reactions. So feelings are that which we respond through, but emotions are more reacting to things. And that's really what gets us, actually. We have a term in the study, which is Maya, which means illusion, but it starts in the thoughts and then it moves into emotions. And that's when it really consumes us. And it's quite interesting, of course, with every thought, there's that associated feeling or emotion. And if that becomes, as they say, almost like a pathway, these brain pathways, if it becomes one that I travel frequently, it becomes like a rut. It becomes a rut. Again, that deep habit, that deep addiction, I just live there. And, there's been these studies on neuroplasticity, which are kind of fascinating because they really give us a lot of information about what spiritual journey is going to look like. And what happens with this neuroplasticity or trying to there's the original pathway that's fired, but then a new one develops. And this is, you spoke about body consciousness and soul consciousness at the beginning. When we start to forget ourselves, these different ways of operating begin to fire. And we use them more and more. And the original one, the spiritual one, the pure one, is becoming dormant. We're not using it at all. So that little dark room is like something that's been firing a lot. I have the same thoughts and they lead me to the same emotions, and it's going on over and over. And I decorate the dark room. It becomes very vibrant to me. What neuroplasticity is telling us is that we have to have a deep understanding, start to accept, this is the big thing, really accept this other pathway, the original one exists, and start to fire it. And at first it's not going to feel at all as powerful as the one we acquired. It's going to feel really flimsy. And when both are firing at the same time, it's just going to feel awkward.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to keep going at it. And this is why we have a community of spirituality to support each other. There was a film that came out a while ago, and it was very funny. I won't go into the whole thing, but it had a superhero who didn't understand himself, and in that lack of understanding, started to engage in behavior that wasn't especially present. But it turned out he was like this incredibly beautiful, hearted being with superpowers, but had lost everything and didn't know the story about himself at all. And there's a point when he's coming back online and he's working with a PR man to improve his image. And the PR man says to him, you know what, it's going to really help you a lot. When you're working with the police or anything, just go up to them, pat them on the back and say, good job. And you see him the first time he's trying and he's going, it's so mechanical. He goes, good job. But he keeps doing it. He just keeps, because that is his true self. But we've become so the dark room seems more, it's got such a deep habit, such a deep pull. Replacement, we've got to drop by drop get that other synapse firing, and it's going to seem flimsy.
Yeah.
But we have to create a community, a culture, a daily program that's going to support the development of that original pathway.
Sure. We have to do that. And as you said, you can't just leave a hole. You have to supplant. You have to plant in an elevated thought of some sort. And that gets to be the new habit. Someone is telling me that the chat is not working, but I do have 2 comments in the Q&A that I'd like to read to you. Cheryl says, thanks for sharing about the heart, learning to let go of the past and the addiction to blaming others is truly replaced by God's love. Such a great experience. Love you love your sharing. Mm-hmm. And That was the comment from Cheryl.
Wow, Cheryl could have given this lecture. That was beautiful.
Really, yeah.
I think the
Stop.
chat is open now.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Thank you,
Thank
Eric.
Yeah.
Angel
love-
from behind the
I
scenes.
know. It's the voice of, I won't say it. Okay. Okay, wonderful. All right, so the chat is open. Anyone? Okay.
How is everyone's heart doing out there?
Michelle says, thank you for a joyful chat.
Mm.
Okay, anyone else? Comment or question for Sister Judi? I guess we've healed a lot of hearts tonight.
We're all on this journey, and
We're all on
again,
this
to
journey.
support each other is wonderful.
Mm. You know, it's funny. When I was much younger, I used to put my fingers here when I was anxious to make sure I was still alive.
Mm.
Isn't
Wow.
that? And I, went through a little period as a teenager where I would just keep a little bit of hypochondriasis, and what you just made me do made me feel so good, because I did have to get in touch with who I really am, which is I'm going back about decades to when I didn't have a sense of who I really was, that I was okay. I didn't have the spirituality developed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
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 We got some more comments. Let's
Mhm.
see. Here we go. Who said that? I could not feel my pulse. I'm a bit worried. I think that's Brother Eric joking with us. All right. Mariana says, my heart still needs so much guidance. Yes, I can understand that. Marcella, what a really beautiful heart. Thank you, he's saying. And Jane, in grateful appreciation for sharing the beautiful gifts of a free heart. What a wonderful inspiration you are. And I would certainly agree with that. So we have about 10 minutes left. And I'm going to ask you if you'd like to take us out finish the hour with some meditative commentary, unless there's anything else you'd like to add to it or respond to before we do that.
Yeah, I just want to, just with Marianne, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Mariana's comment, and this is a short sharing tonight. It sounds like done, we're good. And really, it's, to me, the essence of the spiritual journey, and hopefully a very pleasant one. But yes, it's going to be fraught with a lot of ups and downs. And one thing that kind of interferes a lot, I remember when I first came into spirituality, I tend to be a bit visual, for better or worse. And one of the images that came was the heart, if you will. And then this sort of defense system around it, like, a moat and a brick wall and electric fence. No, this isn't good. This is not good. And I think that's, sometimes that's the feeling, is the heart's so sensitive and it just sort of walls itself in, and God can't even get to it. God, the one thing that might be able to help us out, I'm not sure if it's going to work out well. And what's creating all of that? Again, understanding is king. And I can't say it enough, understanding is king. A really good spiritual practice doesn't ask you to do anything by compulsion or rote or ritual, but from understanding, and that's from the heart. And I appreciate that ego really had created that whole structure. We sort of had hired ego, given it the assignment to protect our value, our sense of value, and said, okay, I'll do the best I can. And of course, it created an artificial form of value and created this whole system of protection. And it's quite intense and not particularly pleasant the way it operates. And so that is a piece in terms of freeing the heart, actually, is also freeing it from the influence of ego. I'll just finish on that point. One of the classes we teach is called, Eric, Pulse. It's called Pulse. And it's a dance-based class. It's really dancey. I'm not going to do a demonstration for you, but it's very dancey. And the souls that come into the room, we always joke, the only thing that stops you, you don't need to have any experience in dance. The only thing that's going to stop you is ego. You must leave ego at the door. Now, the ones who free themselves with ego to come into the room and just jump around, do whatever, they always say, oh, this just touches my heart to do this class, because they're so free. They're so free, right? They don't care what they look like. They're expressing, they get to express their creativity. So that's definitely a player, perhaps something for your own reflections, and not to really delve deeply. That is body consciousness.
Yeah.
So freeing the heart is going to involve coming face to face with that body consciousness, that ego. So it's going to be fraught with a lot of interesting aspects, but if you're armed with understanding, then you will be successful.
Yeah. And everything you're talking about is talking about not being, what I'm hearing, not being the victim. You use the word victim and victimization. The way to turn that around is by using the tools you've talked about tonight. And that is true independence. And so many of us, we're miserable because of what's happening outside of our front door or outside of ourselves or another we give power. We give so much power to others and to circumstance. And I think what I'm hearing you say is you don't have to do that.
No. Rather, the power is within us. We have beautiful capacities in our heart, and whatever is going on outside the door, we can send a wave of something different in response. So make a huge difference from the heart.
Make a choice.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
enjoy the journey. We'll have a little bit of reflection together.
Yeah, but there's one chat here. Oh, the chat is from Mariana. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mariana, for being an active chatter tonight.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
Would you honor us with a meditative commentary?
We'll see what happens.
If you won't dance for us, I hope it's not your ego getting in the way.
I'm hoping Eric will dance for us, actually. So, sitting quietly, always enjoying these moments I take to really care for the self. So much of the day is focused on the outer world, fulfilling different roles and responsibilities, tasks, and timelines. I never actually stop for my mind to catch its breath or to check the state of my own heart. Am I honoring it? This is a precious moment when I do get to stop, dive inside, going through all the layers that build up my inner world and going right to the center, that sacred space, that quiet space, beyond time, the sanctuary within, where I can become quiet, all the labels falling away, and all that remains is the heartbeat, that spiritual heartbeat. Listening to the voice of my own heart. There are such beautiful feelings in the heart of the human soul.
often hidden behind all the other noise in my inner world. Noise that sometimes even claims to be the feelings of the heart. But those are deep within. I can hear them in a very peaceful state, quiet state. The whispers in the chambers of the spiritual heart remind me of the wonder of the self, the greatness of the human spirit. The heart of the soul has no limits. There's no condition on the love or the kindness or the forgiveness or compassion. Each soul loves to be loving, loves to be kind. And at times it may not seem possible. And so the best place to begin is with the self. To be kind and loving to the self, even in the face of mistakes. This frees the heart. And knowing there is always one being who remembers we are each loving, lovable, and loved, even when we forget. And that one being is God, the one whose heart is always free. To sit in that one's heart is to experience the depths of pure love, pure kindness, and complete forgiveness. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. On behalf of everyone, thank you for a most beautiful hour, magical hour. Thank you, Sister Judi. So good to see you again.
It's lovely to see you, Louise. Thank you for being such a wonderful, wonderful MC. I won't even say MC. What such a wonderful heart
Thank you.
in this
Thank
gathering.
you. Well, I feel rich tonight, very rich. And I'd like to invite everyone to join us next week when we have Sister Gayatri Narain. Most of you know Sister Gayatri, and she will talk, our very last session actually, on nurturing true independence, and she will talk about life and liberty. So thank you for coming this evening. We hope to see you all next week. And again, Sister Judi, there are no words. My heart is bursting.
Glad your heart is rich, and glad Judi is also rich. And want to just say from a superhero, good job.
Thank you, Eric, to you as well. You are the magic behind the scenes. So thank you. I hope you find your pulse.
Yeah, me too. I'm worried. Hope I'm not dead. So thank you everybody for coming. See you next week, and fill your heart, clean your heart, and we will be here again.
Okay. You're fading, Brother Eric. Check your pulse, Brother Eric. We've lost your voice.
Will do.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Om
Bye-bye.
Shanti.
Shanti.
Bye.